Hey everyone, so the LCS playoffs are starting tomorrow, and I want to talk about my kind of expectations and predictions for how the bracket's going to play out. Uh, Before we jump into it, I do want to apologize for the lack of content over the past couple of weeks. I was on vacation for a bit, and then and while we were on vacation, a house came up for listing that we were really interested in, and we're in the process of buying it. So that is really chaotic and super busy. So I haven't really had a chance to keep up on certain things and be covering proving grounds as closely as I hoped, but hopefully be a little bit more back in the swing of things soon. Although we then have to prepare our current house for listing and all that kind of stuff. But I'll do as much as I can. So let's talk about the LCS playoffs they're about to start, and we'll just jump in and we'll just talk through the bracket. The first match in the upper bracket, of course, this is a 6-team double elimination with the 5th and 6th seeds starting in the lower bracket. So the first match in the upper bracket, it's actually Cloud9 versus 100 Thieves playing first, but this is the way the bracket is kind of visually laid out, at least by Leaguepedia, and how I'm going to do it as well. So let's talk about Team Liquid Evil Geniuses first and just move kind of top to bottom. Obviously, Team Liquid are going to be the favorites here. I think going in, just as an overall comment, I think there are 3 teams that all have a good chance to win, and that would be Team Liquid, Cloud9, and 100 Thieves. And then you've got Evil Geniuses, who I think could win, but are definitely more of a dark horse. Things would have to go really right for them, and they'd have to kind of hit all their highs to do it. But I think it is possible for them as well. With 4 possible winners and 3 reasonable winners, I think that makes this really wide open. And the other note on this is that they're coming into this weekend's matches with only a couple of days of scrims on the new patch that they switched over for these playoffs. So this first round, especially these first 2 matches, are going to be really unpredictable, I think, because we've got the 4 best teams, and who knows what's going to happen with the meta and what their reads on it. But Team Liquid Evil Geniuses, clearly Team Liquid is going to be the favorite here. It's fun because it's a rematch from the lock-in tournament. It's fun because there was the big kind of Bjergsen versus Jojo Pian, the old veteran versus the new rookie hotness, and the way that played out in the finals there. And that storyline, I think, is faded out because Team Liquid have won so much. Evil Geniuses have had their ups and downs. But I think it still is a fun storyline that I hope they'll kind of revive and follow through for this series. I think Danny against Hans Sama is a really interesting matchup in this series because you would expect coming into the year that Hans Sama, with his pedigree, would be like, the super favored side of this matchup, but I don't think he is. I think his play this split compared to what I hoped and expected out of him was not up to par. And I think Danny just grew and grew and grew. So I think you could put them pretty even on who's going to deliver more in this series. I think the big difference is that Team Liquid seem a lot more cohesive. They seem like they have a game plan that they're all on the same page to follow, whereas Evil Geniuses have a lot of kind of desyncs especially between, you notice a lot of these games where Inspired really wants to play the control, the farm, the kind of macro-oriented pathing in the early game, and other parts of EG want to kind of smash their lanes, rotate to sides, dive and snowball and that kind of thing, and they just don't quite seem to be doing the same thing at the same time. And I think that's the main reason that, even though EG's ceiling is good enough to beat TL if things go right and if they address that and I'll get on the same page, I think TL have. Core JJ is a big difference maker. They're much more cohesive, and I think they're going to deliver. So I'm going to predict this series as a Team Liquid 3-1 victory. We move on to Cloud9 versus 100 Thieves. We did see these 2 teams play recently. 100 Thieves, at that time, you'd call it a big upset over Cloud9 and beat them. That was the game where Someday played Malphite into Summit's Graves and kind of wrecked him. And 100 Thieves, they've had a really good finish to the split after a pretty bumpy start, especially relative to their expectations as the defending champions and not changing their roster at all, things like that. So don't let that Graves Malphite match dictate kind of what you expect out of that matchup or this match. I consider that a little bit more of a one-off. I still think Summit is noticeably the better player. But there are a lot of strengths on both sides. Obviously, Blabber, big difference maker. The jungle matchup in this Blabber versus Closer is going to be really big. They both contribute a lot in different ways. I think Abadaga is a fun one to look at. I think his performance really mirrored the team's overall performance, where he started off quite underwhelming, but in the last parts of the season, I thought he really picked it up and played quite well. And brought it well together. I think Abadaga Fudge is going to be a matchup that should go fairly even and back and forth. I think, depending what they draft into those matchups is going to be the main thing that dictates how they go in lane. And then you have bot lane, where if FBI and Huhi play like we know FBI and Huhi can, they have a lot of potential to really dominate that lane 2v2. But we saw at other times that when they try to pick for like the Caitlyn Lux, like Smash 2v2, that didn't work out well for the team as a whole. And what they have done the best is the 5v5 team fighting and scaling into that. And Cloud9 are pretty happy to opt into that as well. So I think we're going to see a lot of big 5v5 fighting in this series. I think we're going to see a jungle duel to see which team kind of comes into those with a little bit of an advantage. And I think it's going to be super, super close. I do think 100 Thieves have a bit more momentum coming into these playoffs, and that's why I'm going to call this one 100 Thieves 3-2. And I think these are both going to be great series to watch, especially Cloud9 and 100 Thieves. And that would lead to an upper final of Team Liquid versus 100 Thieves. And now if I have the ordering of these correct, which I believe I do, that would drop Evil Geniuses down to face Golden Guardians and Cloud9 down to face FlyQuest. So let's talk about those first. Evil Geniuses, Golden Guardians. Obviously, Golden Guardians took a game off EG at the end of the split there and forced that tiebreaker scenario to play out. I think in a best of 5, EG are definitely going to come out ahead in the long run. But clearly, Golden Guardians have the tools. They have the tools to beat anyone in the league. You see the kind of early game leads that they're able to generate when everything goes well. I think a Blaze Olive and Licorice, I've been saying it since late last year, that they're both like a really underrated solo lane pairing. And any team with those two players in the solo lanes can have some really good potential. I think Pride Stalker obviously is a very different kind of jungler than we tend to see from most of the other players here, where he's very farm oriented and kind of selfish, but not so much with the negative connotations. He wants to set himself up to be the big powerhouse, and so you can get a really strong top side of the map. And against EG, you have to lane into Jojo Pyun, who is the best laning mid in the league right now. You potentially can just out farm and out power Inspired in the jungle, and then you get Licorice Impact. Impact is not. He's really good at a lot of things, but he's not the guy who's going to like shut down Licorice. I think it's going to be more what does the mid and jungle do to affect that top lane. Golden Guardians can definitely get some early game leads here, especially if EG aren't on the same page. I think the insurance that Evil Geniuses get out of Danny's team fighting and the map activity they get out of Vulcan is a bigger difference maker than what you get out of Lost and Ole. And so I think that's the reason that I would call EG the 3-1 favorites for this series, moving them into the second round of the lower bracket. You then get Cloud9 against FlyQuest. I don't think there's much competition here, to be honest. Whether it's Cloud9 or 100 Thieves here, I think this will be one of the easier series to call. And that sounds very dismissive of FlyQuest, but that's not the point. It's just the EG being the weakest of the top 4 coming up against Golden Guardians, who have, a lot of upset potential. That's always going to be a closer series compared to, either Cloud9 or 100 Thieves, two very strong favorites. Now, FlyQuest, I think the matchup is a big issue for them here because I don't think top lane, they have really the tools they need to survive Summit and Blabber. Bot lane, they can probably be fine. In the team fights, they're going to need some big leads to win in the team fighting. Tukui could make a difference, but I think Fudge matches his team fighting quality pretty handily. I think Jose Deodo could find some ways to make a difference. They could definitely steal a game, but if I'm going to call a 3-0 in this first set of series, this is the one where I'm going to do it. And I think that's the most likely outcome here. FlyQuest has definitely the potential to take a game or two, but I think they're in a tough spot in this bracket. And it's possible I have that I've got it wrong on which teams would drop into which bracket here, and you might get an EG FlyQuest. If that's the case, I don't think it is. I think these are the correct matchups, but I think EG would maybe be like a 3-1 favorite of a FlyQuest, something like that. But regardless, I think we're going to see the two lower bracket teams get knocked out, leading to these matchups. So, upper final, Team Liquid 100 Thieves in this version of reality. Boy, this will be a fun one. This will be I think, a very careful series. Very probably scaling oriented. Core JJ and Huhi both love to get active. They both love to affect the mid lane. In top lane, you've got Bwipo going up against Someday, which, Bwipo's, he's also fairly aggressive, but a little bit more off kilter than Summit. I think that top lane matchup, Someday's going to have to kind of handle it and figure out how to survive through that. I think Closer has a jungle advantage over Santorin, but it will depend on how mid lane affects that. And Bjergsen, I would give an advantage over Abadaga overall. As a team, I think for 100 Thieves to pull what I would consider an upset with TL as the first seed, they would need like a really monstrous performance from FBI, who I think can outperform Hans Sama, especially given the level Hans has been playing at, which, as I've already mentioned, is not quite to the level I hoped. I definitely don't think Team Liquid are like 3-0 favored. I'm debating kind of how Team Liquid is definitely who I would predict. I think they have to be the favorites in this series, pending what we see in the first series, right? Like, we could see TL struggle against EG and 100 Thieves look really convincing against C9, and then maybe that changes. After seeing that, maybe we change. But going in as of the information we have right now, I think you have to give it to Team Liquid 3-1 on the strength of just the top lane matchup being a little bit in their favor, the mid lane matchup being a little bit in their favor, and Core JJ being such a difference maker. That said, 100 Thieves have a lot of momentum. If they beat Cloud9, they'll have that much more momentum. Really could go a lot of different ways. And as I've said, 100 Thieves are a candidate to win it also. In the lower bracket, Evil Geniuses, Cloud9. And if this is the way it plays out, by the way, like, this is most of the iterations of that top four facing off against each other. We wouldn't see Evil Geniuses, 100 Thieves, in these first four matches, or Cloud9 TL, but getting to see all these four teams in as many different, permutations as possible up against each other in best of fives, that's what makes this playoffs exciting to me. EGC9, obviously by seeding, Cloud9 are going to be the favored team. Impact handling Summit, I think, is going to be a little tricky, but certainly possible. If he and Impact is one of the players. There are a handful of players in the league where Impact, Huni, some others who definitely seem to kind of turn the corner at the end of the split or going into playoffs and tighten things up a lot. Impact is definitely one of those. He's a playoff performer. That doesn't mean I think he's going to suddenly ascend to Summit's level and skill. But I think that some of the sloppiness or imperfection that we've seen in his play at times could certainly get cleaned up. Blabber and Fudge as a mid-jungle duo are stronger, I think, than Jojo Pion Inspired. Not on raw, abstract skill necessarily, but on how well they work together and the goals they're trying to achieve together, which I've already kind of alluded to. I think that's a huge advantage for Cloud9, and I think that, if EG are going to try to win the mid lane with pressure and priority and stuff, I think Blabber is really good at punishing that, and Jojo is punishable in the way he plays his mid lane matchups, unless he's getting covered really well by Inspired and Vulcan, which I don't. Sometimes he is, but not always, and that's too inconsistent from EG's side. I think Summit is going to get matchups, and even without good matchups, control his lane against Impact. And that leaves the bot lane for EG, where they need to either be supporting the way Jojo plays or be kind of smashing their own lane and having a really strong bottom side focus in the map. Danny and Vulcan against Berserker and Winsome, I think they can push that lane, but I don't think they're going to smash it. And I'm just not. I don't see quite a clean enough attack from EG to offset what C9 get from their jungle, from the cleanliness and safety of how Fudge plays mid, from the late game insurance they have from Berserker and all these things. So I think C9 would be fairly strong favorites in this, probably 3-1. So that would leave a 100 Thieves versus Cloud9 third place matchup. And Team Liquid awaiting the winner. So this would be a 100 Thieves C9 matchup. It's always tough in these double elimination kind of bracket projections because, you know, when you actually see these playing out, you've now got, 6 series of information to judge all these teams on more. But going in right now, if I'm going to predict 100 Thieves to beat C9 3-2 the first time they meet, and then a couple of series later face again, right from this current projecting standpoint, I don't have any new info, so why would I not just predict the same result? Given the amount of time and information they've had to gather, obviously that can change things. And then if C9 say, hey, we lost it these ways, and we're going to change that, but 100 Thieves say they took 2 games off us in these ways, whatever it's going to be. You can kind of try to think about which team might benefit more from that learning and from that additional time on the patch. And I think 100 Thieves, with all their veterancy, would probably gain a bit more from that. Cloud9's younger players would be getting, Berserker and Winsome getting a lot of experience, but I'm not sure that's, I think 100 Thieves have a really large, robust kind of coaching staff to help with this. They've got players who have done this all a lot before. Cloud9 do as well. Blabber's been through a lot of playoff runs. Summit has done, is fairly experienced, but not on the same level as 100 Thieves players. So I think 100 Thieves would probably be more in the groove by now. And I would predict them to win again, but this time 3-1 for those reasons. That leaves a Team Liquid 100 Thieves final. And again, it's a rematch. And again, we have to think about who has kind of benefited more. Team Liquid have, in this world, won 3-1 against 100 Thieves already. Now they've been able to sit and watch the previous day as 100 Thieves played against Cloud9. They've been able to learn from that. 100 Thieves might have some momentum. The learning, I think, the scouting might be more valuable than the momentum. Is it enough that I would then say Team Liquid 3-0? I don't think so. I think 100 Thieves have enough strength that they would still put up a good fight. Not enough that I would predict them higher than that, so I would call it Team Liquid 3-1 finals. So that's my final bracket projection, just based on kind of talking myself through it here. I'm curious to see what yours would be, and I'm curious how many series into the playoffs is this going to get thrown off? Is it going to be the very first series with Cloud9 taking down 100 Thieves? Are EG going to upset Team Liquid off the bat? One of the lower bracket teams push through with an upset? A lot of things could happen. I think these playoffs are really hard to call. Like I said, 3 reasonable winners and 1 outside chance of a winner. And I think NA is going to send a strong team to MSI, regardless of all this. So I can't wait to watch it all play out. Hope you'll watch it with me. And again, apologies for the relative lack of content lately. And hopefully things will go well enough that I'm able to get back on that horse sooner rather than later. Thanks for watching and supporting my content. I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and check out the channel memberships if you want to get access to custom emojis, special roles in the Oracle's Elixir Discord, and other perks.